Yum, yum. It's time for a tasty and refreshing snack.
You know who I can do without? I can do without the people in the video store.
Which ones?
All of them. They never rent quality flicks. They always pick the most intellectually devoid movie on the racks.
And now, on with the show.
Hey guys, what's going on? You are listening to ThisWeekInGeek.net's Loose Cannon, the show where we decide to take a look at things from video history past, the stuff you may have seen on the video store shelf at some point during your youth. Although today, oh boy, unless you happen to live in a foreign country, you did not see these movies. I am your host, Mike the Birdman, but I'm not alone, as I am definitely looking at a thing. I'm joined by the host of this anime podcast, and you've heard him many times on this program before.
It's Ken Reels.
Ken. I don't know whether I question your sanity, or I wish to quote Kevin Smith's podcast with, "What the fuck, Japan?"
Actually, to be fair, the second one is from China.
Okay, what the fuck, China, then? Because what I have watched in the last 24 hours is some of the most batshit insane things I have ever seen. So, to paint a picture for both of you this week, or for our audience this episode of Loose Cannon, we are taking a look at two movies that were released overseas based on video game properties. I mean, obviously we've had the smash success of the Mario Bros. Movie that's crested over $1 billion, I believe. We had The Last of Us be a fantastic thing, which we are still going to be doing something before we take our summer break on other video game adaptations, but this is something that I was always curious, because video game adaptations, when it comes to other media, can be fairly successful. And some not so much. I mean, like, hell, did you know there's a Dead Rising movie? I sure as hell didn't, and I think it's on Tubi right now, I'm pretty sure.
Everything's on Tubi.
Let me see, like, what other things have we seen that are fairly unknown? Actually, I can tell folks, the first video game adaptation anime I ever saw was from a Blockbuster in the early 90s. Maybe, I guess it would be about 96, give or take. I know I was in high school when I saw it, and it's from a PlayStation 1 video game called Battle Arena Toshinden. And I was actually expecting us to talk about that movie today, because I was like, hey, Ken will give me some anime movies, and I get to revisit some happy memories. Oh no, was I ever the fuck wrong? So the first movie we're going to be talking about today is one that I'd only ever seen screenshots for. But I guess before we go any further, Ken, when it comes to watching video game adaptations that maybe not a lot of people kind of know about, what was the first one you remember seeing? Like I said, for me, it was Battle Arena Toshinden. What about you?
I mean, I'm of the Pokemon generation, so yeah, Pokemon the first movie. And yeah, you want to talk about a movie that makes little kids cry? That's that movie.
That's very true. Now, I actually one thing I would love to do, Ken, because you and I play Pokemon, either the mainline series. I don't know whether you play Go or not.
No, I don't, because I missed the boat, because my phone at the time could not play Pokemon Go.
Oh man, because I know you posted something in one of our like private chats talking about Pokemon Home. Like, another Pokemon Go player, but no. So I remember seeing the first Pokemon movie in theaters once upon a time. I was in high school. I saw it with my friend Ryan. We were like ridiculously huge Pokemon fans. I think I remember leaving school early that day so we could both go get in line to be first at our little theater. And I think at that time it was Owen Sound Cinemas. I think it was Owen Sound Cinemas 5. Like, it was a big deal because we had 3 screens and then they expanded to 5 screens. Ooh. And it was also a big deal because they handed out promo cards of Pikachu for that movie. And it was the first time, at least to my memory, because I didn't see the anime Pokemon series every day after school, that I'd seen new Pokemon. And they showed Dawn Fan literally in the first couple minutes of the movie.
Donphan was appeared in the actual movie, and then the short that was in front of it showed Meryl, and there was
Togepi?
another one.
No,
And
Togepi.
No,
Yeah.
Togepi was already in the anime at that point.
Yeah.
But I think Meryl was the first.
Yeah, because like I was like, wow, this is different. And let me tell you, me and Ryan were the oldest kids in the theater. It was a little weird. But we still had a fantastic time. And this is the era of Burger King doing Pokemon toys. Like those golden cards in the giant Pokeballs. I wish I still had mine. My grandmother used my Pokeball as an ashtray. You bitch. So the movies that Ken sent to me this week, we're going to start with the first anime adaptation of Super Mario. And I'd only ever seen screenshots from this. I'd seen them in magazines. I'd hear people reference them in like YouTube videos. And it just never occurred to me in 2023, hey man, everything's on YouTube. And it never occurred to me to look.
Yeah. Well, last year, there was a massive project to up-res the special to 4K, and then also to subtitle it. And that came out last year, like early last year, I think. And it's up on YouTube for people to watch.
Yeah, and it's about an hour long. Now, how much of the history of this movie do you know, Ken?
Basically, this was the first Mario anything outside of the games. It was done in 86. So
wow, so that predates a lot of the US stuff.
It predates pretty much everything.
Wow.
So like a lot of what is this production is just like, it basically predates everything and establishes elements that become Mario canon later.
Yeah, because while I was watching it, I didn't know what year it was from. And they have this really weird sense of scaling. And there's a scene in it where a Hammer brother has captured Mario and Luigi. And I was like, is that a Sledge brother? And I'm thinking that would put this around the time of the Wizard. But just hearing you say that, thinking, okay, maybe that's just inconsistency in scale. But for some reason, these guys have a dog sidekick, and we'll get to that. And now that you mention this, I got this. I just was thinking about this when the Super Mario Brothers Super Show would come out in the late 80s with Captain Lou Albino. You would get a little cartoon segment lasting about 10 to 15 minutes, and you'd get the Legend of Zelda on Fridays. And I always thought that animation was really something special. You would get the new adventures of Super Mario 3 later on from NBC, and then Super Mario World would come out in 1991. I think it would be on the NBC Saturday, or NBC or CBS. I think it was NBC Saturday mornings, because I used to watch that shit religiously. So seeing this movie was a trip. Oh boy, is it a trip. Because I started messaging you immediately when I started watching this at like midnight. Now, I will admit, I'm about an edible or two in. Because and my cats are killing each other. Ayla, could you like not suck? Beaker, stop being a little shit. Anyway, sorry, cats. And I started messaging you. And there is a moment very, very early on. Ken, I'm going to get you to explain the plot for this in just a moment here. where I saw what they did to one of my favorite franchise characters of the entirety of Mario canon. I love Toad. Toad in the new Mario movie, fucking winner. Loved him in the original series, this little whiny mushroom dude. Fantastic. And then Ken, you broke my heart. Because what in the ever-loving crap did you do to Toad? So please, let's explain the plot and then let's talk about this weirdness that lasted just over an hour.
So the basic plot is Mario is oddly enough playing a game, playing his Nintendo, and somehow at some point Peach shows up on his television, pops out of said television, and gets kidnapped by Bowser, who grabs her from the TV back into it, leaving a magical emerald and Mario just becomes smitten with her instantly and decides, you know what, we're gonna go rescue the princess, and dives into the TV. Luigi follows him and insanity ensues.
Yeah, like, okay, so he calls her immediately Princess Peach. Now, I don't know a lot of my Mario history, so was Princess Toadstool an American thing and she was always Princess Peach over in Japan?
That was probably a subtitle thing.
Okay, yeah, because I was kind of starting to worry. I'm thinking, if this is establishing Peach all this way, wow, because again, my experience as a Canadian / American, North American, will say, was she was always Princess Toadstool, and just seeing Peach, I'm thinking, wow, because I didn't think they started calling her Peach until Mario 64. So, continue on.
It basically, all I can say is just insanity ensues as they go
for three
all over the place.
Yeah, they're hunting for 3 mystical power-ups which hold the power of the Mushroom Kingdom. There's a power-up mushroom that isn't like the traditional mushrooms that they just find there. There's a fire flower, which makes sense, and then there's the star. And Bowser's objective is, much like the 2023 Mario movie, he wants to marry Peach because he loves her so much. And Ken isn't wrong when he says insanity. So for some reason reasons that are not entirely clear to me by sanity or any other method of reasoning, Mario and Luigi have a caterpillar dog thing, which kind of reminds me of the one enemy from Mario World, because it looks like a multi-segmented caterpillar, but this is clearly a blue dog.
Yeah, it's Wiggler Light.
Yeah, it's so strange, and I'm just thinking, okay, sure. And Luigi's not even in his proper green colors. Here he's blue and like yellow. I'm thinking, all right, this is, I guess this is like the Jumpman alternate colors from the arcade game.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not nuts. And then there's a lot of music in this. Like, and some of the songs may only last like 30 seconds, but it's like, I am super, we are full-blooded rock and roll. And the subtitles are, oh boy. They are a thing when they translate these literally from Japanese to English. And then there's a moment that I have got to talk about. So Mario has freed the mushrooms from this random side of a mountain. And the mushroom people, Toad, is this weird mushroom girl hybrid that I literally had to call Blair, and she'd been asleep for just a couple of minutes at this point. I'm like, yo, honey, you've got to check this out. She's like, Michael, you woke me up for, oh my God. And she's like, what the fuck is that? And I'm like, I don't know. And it's just, they've weirdly turned into this ooh-woo cutesy kind of, I wouldn't say sexualized, but definitely a little more curvy than the Toad I'm familiar with, in Mushroom People. And it's just as dumb as it sounds. Mushroom People. Although some of the other enemies that are represented in this game, you do see Goombas, which are actually pretty funny in this. The Lackey 2 I really liked. There's a point where Lackey 2 throws all these spiny, I guess, spores down to the surface, and he's like, I have to use rain, then I have to use thunder, and then sunshine, and then they grow into spinies and attack Mario and Luigi. And then somehow Mario gains control of Lackey 2's cloud. He causes a monsoon, and they become giant and engorged, and it's also pretty friggin' weird. You have piranha plants, which make a very brief appearance. They also use a lot of the game music in there, and some of it's appropriate, some of it's not. They use some sound effects from the game, but there are a few instances where they don't use the expected sound effect. Like, for example, they're going through warp pipes at one point in this, and you don't hear the sound effect, yet at the very end of the movie, you get a warp pipe sound effect. And I was expecting that a lot earlier. I'm thinking, you could have used that at so many other points. Like, there's one point where Ken says that they get sucked into the TV, and Mario and Luigi are just about to go in. And I would have expected the warp sound effect when he jumps the dimensional barrier, I guess. And you don't get that. And I was like, that's a really easy pull. And you hear the coin sound effect a bunch. You hear the turtle kicking sound effect, I think, a few times. The death sound effect, the game over little jingle there. It's like 3 or 4 seconds. And it's very strange. And then there's one moment where Bowser, who's not necessarily a bad guy, he wants to marry Peach because reasons. And
he's just a weirdo.
Yeah, he's just a weirdo, which is a reoccurring theme. I mean, he's not singing Peaches, which honestly, that would have very fit with this movie. He's talking with Peach in his castle, and she's like, if you loved me, you'd really let me go. And he's like, oh, I can't do that. I have to marry you because I love you so much. And she convinces him to shapeshift, and he turns it, and the subtitles start saying some of these words are complete nonsense and are made up because Peach is trying to fuck with him. And I'm like, okay, I'll bite. And he turns into this scarecrow-like thing. Okay, sure, why not? Let's go with that. And then the scene continues. And then you get Bowser looking like the most stereotypical Americanized drag version of Bowser, where I don't know if they were channeling the comedian Divine from the 80s or not. It's just weird. And I remember typing this to Ken. I think it was like 12:30 or 1 in the morning. I'm thinking, what in the fuck are you showing me? And you're like, because Japan. And you aren't wrong. I love how my cats are murdering each other during a podcast recording. Sorry, folks. Ayla's a grandma cat. Anyway, and then Mario and Luigi eventually get captured. They get tricked by a couple of Goombas. They go to a gold mine. I'm like, well, you shouldn't have done that. You should have asked permission first. And the movie ends with them digging down, and they find an airship, which I guess, as you mentioned, Ken, this becomes kind of canon later on because airships become a big thing in like Mario 3, and like basically everything forward, there's always some reference to something in there. You do see different types of the turtle, of the Koopa Troopas. You see paratroopers. You see the regular guys. There's like a choir of turtles at one point, which I thought was actually kind of amusing. But eventually they defeat Bowser. And this is one of the first times I can remember seeing a post-credits sequence in something, as you mentioned, this old. Bowser ends up working at a grocery store with a woman buying apple pie.
Yep.
And it's really friggin' weird because I'm like, okay, I have no words for this. And it's so strange because I messaged Alex earlier in the night saying, hey, I'm going to watch this for Loose Cannon with like Ken tomorrow. He's like, oh, it's like the Super Mario Brothers Super Show on a budget. And it didn't occur to me until after I'd watched the movie. I'm thinking, you know what? He's not wrong, because I honestly expected, and I don't think this is culturally insensitive, but if it comes out of Japan, I expect a certain level of quality. If it's an anime, it should look awesome all the time, right? And I'm sure there are crappy looking animes because, again, my knowledge pretty much comes from you, Ken, and Alex. So maybe I'm very ignorant in this regard. Like, I just expect that stuff to look wicked. And Mario anime,
you use us to sift through the shit.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of trash.
Yeah, and I just kind of assumed if Nintendo put their name on it, it's got to be awesome. And I'm watching this thing, and
Nintendo barely had any control over this production.
Yeah, like, it was so strange that Nintendo would allow this, but I remember hearing quotes for years that Nintendo was notoriously shy with its IPs after the Mario movie. And I always got to thinking, okay, that all has to be attributed to the Bob Hoskins movie, and yet it wasn't. I guess I can see why Nintendo was super hesitant to license anything after this anime movie, which admittedly wasn't terrible. It's terrible, but it's harmless terrible, if that makes any kind of sense, because it was only limited to Japan and whatnot.
Well,
because we never saw it over here.
It was the Bob Hoskins movie that forced them to say no. Nintendo was okay with this because, again, there was very little actual canonical stuff from the games at the time. So
yeah, and I guess with it being so regional specific, they didn't feel it would hurt the worldwide brand of Mario.
And I mean, they did. There was this, and then there was also a special that they did for Fire Emblem. Yes. That is very hard to find, and I've only seen clips.
I remember when I was, again, a wee lad growing up in Owen Sound, and I remember going to a video store, and I remember there was a Final Fantasy RPG, or not RPG, a Final Fantasy anime that came out in the 90s. Like, do you know if I'm insane? Am I misremembering this?
I don't.
And it was supposed to be part of like a series, but they only made like 2 or 3 episodes, and that was it. Maybe I'm remembering the box.
Nope. You're right.
Yes.
Yep.
So
I'm looking at it now.
Okay, so I'm not nuts. So yeah, I mean, this was.
Oh, it was a promotional thing for Crystal Chronicles.
Okay, not crazy. Good to know. So yeah, like, seeing this, obviously it's on YouTube, it's free, it's in 4K. Is it worth watching? Well, if you've got nothing else to do for an hour, it's certainly a trip. It is an experience. It's by no means a masterpiece. Is it worse than Mortal Kombat: The Journey Begins? And that's a deep cut, folks. No, this is infinitely more watchable than that.
Yeah.
And then, Ken, you're a monster. So Ken sent me, when we were planning this, I'm like, Ken, I want you to show me video game adaptations that I've never seen before. And originally we were going to do 3 movies today, but Mike's a wuss and went to bed early. So we're doing 2 movies today. And the second movie we're going to talk about now is a Street Fighter adaptation. Now, I had foolishly assumed that there were only a couple of these things. And I thought the first one was the Street Fighter anime movie, which everybody has seen. Honestly, I will fucking defend that movie to the death. Even with the weird Chun-Li shower scene and Cammy breaking a guy's neck because programming. But that movie is known for it's an okay American dub, but it's weirdly out of place soundtrack and Ryu fighting a semi truck being driven by bison. So it's a thing. And in fact, Ken, I think next time we do a loose cannon, I've got 2 shows I'm just going to pitch to you right now because I'm just thinking about it. You mentioned being a Pokemon kid. We got to talk Pokemon movies. Now that I'm like I'm playing Scarlet, I'm playing Sword and Shield, I play Pokemon Go relentlessly. We're talking about this during the summer, folks. I'm promising it right now.
I mean, I have the first 3 I have the first 3 on Blu-ray, so
okay, so that's what we will cover. Set. All right, folks. So next time me and Ken are back on the show, we're covering the first 3 Pokemon movies, which is the first 3 I saw in theaters. So I got some memories there. But the second thing I want to pitch to you, Ken, before we get into this fully, is we should cover the wide variety of Street Fighter anime, because there actually has been quite a few, including one American anime series, which was the infamous GIF you've all seen of M. Bison going, yes, yes. And, you know, the Nostalgia Critic made that meme very famous in the in the mid 2000s. So that's a thing. So I'd foolishly assumed, getting back to it, that there were very few Street Fighter things that had existed. So Ken sent
there's actually something earlier.
Oh my God.
With Jackie Chan.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. So Alex showed that to me. So as of this recording, we have just done Twig the night before. So I told Alex about what you and I were doing today, very foolishly. And he's like, Mike, you're never going to believe this. And he's like, there was a City Hunter adaptation of the anime starring Jackie Chan. And this is just before he blew up really big over here in the States with Rumble in the Bronx. I'm thinking, okay, cool, sure. And the City Hunter anime has a scene where Jackie Chan enters an arcade and there's all these Street Fighter characters painted on the wall. And they get into a fight. Jackie Chan gets electrocuted, gets a concussion, and he starts fighting a guy dressed as Ken. And then a guy shows up as Dalsum and Guile. We get an E Honda fight, and it gets progressively weirder as the scene goes on for like 4 minutes. And it had proper sound effects. It had proper music. Even the movements of the characters were copied directly from Street Fighter 2. And I'm thinking, okay, this is actually kind of fun. Not totally insulting us, although seeing Jackie Chan dressed in drag as Chun-Li fighting, well, that's something I'm not soon to forget. And then I got looking at the title for this movie. So I'm going to describe my first experiences, and then Ken, I really invite you to explain the plot of Future Cops to me, because for a few moments, I was utterly lost. And I started posting GIFs of this on Twitter last night in our Facebook chat. And I'm like, what I am not fucked up enough to watch this.
And I will note that I paid 10 Canadian rubles for this movie on...
I paid for this?
I paid for a digital 4K copy of this on Apple because that's the only way it is available in 4K. For some stupid reason, there's a 4K version of this on Apple.
Wow. Okay, folks, so we have teased it long enough. We've held you on the edge of your seat. So Ken sent me a movie. It's a Street Fighter adaptation coming out of Hong Kong called Future Cops. Okay. Well, there are Street Fighter looking people in this. They certainly allude to certain things, and Goku shows up. So, Ken, if you will, please explain Future Cops, and then I will go into the hour and a half that I endured in the middle of the night of Hong Kong bizarreness.
So I'm just going to read directly from the Wikipedia because that's the best way to do it.
All right.
In the year 2043, an evil crime lord, the General, is trying to take over the world. He was arrested and was sentenced to jail by the Judge. The General's minions, Kent, Tai King, and Toyota, traveled to the year 1993 to kill the Judge before he has a chance to get into office. During the battle with the General's minions, the Future Cops, Lung, Broomhead, Tai Man, and Singh hear of their plot. The police director decides to send them back to the past to also protect the Judge. Lung ultimately stays behind because he is the police director's brother-in-law. And hilarity ensues.
Okay, so 3 characters get sent back in time who are supposed to represent Dalsum, Vega, who's now randomly a good guy, and Guile. And I guess because the police's guy's brother is Ryu, does he go back with them? No, he doesn't. He stays in the future. So they go back in time and they end up at this high schooler's house who stayed at the person they're chasing in the past high school. So he's like, at this time, he's only so-and-so years old, but we need to blend in. If we lie in the past, we'll be electrocuted because people in the past, all they do is lie. And okay. And then there's some interesting plot points. So, where is the iPad? Okay, so I was gonna read some direct quotes from my iPad, but I remember these well enough. So there's a scene where one of these characters, before he runs into the Street Fighter characters, gets humiliated, and he has to clean the floors of this St. Kung College or something. And he has a sign on his back saying, "I will not hit the headmaster," or something, whatever. And people are walking by making fun of him. And I would love to know if these subtitles are accurate. But he says,
probably not.
I'm like, "Don't make fun of me. I'll rape you." I'm like, whoa, buddy, that went from 1 to 2,000 really fucking fast. And I'm like, ah. And it just, he keeps saying it. He's like, "I'm gonna rape you, ha ha ha." And it's, oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy. And I was just like, what the fuck? And it gets weirder, if you can believe it, as time goes on. And it, like, at one point, the guy's mom, who the Street Fighter characters are staying with, she has this like electric toothbrush vibrator thing. She pins down this home repairman, and he's like, "Don't try to seduce me. I love my wife." And I'm like, the fuck? And it's just, when Ken says hilarity ensues, he's not kidding. Like, there are other scenes in this where there's this guy with this weird Elvis haircut. He's like the school bully / boss. And like, he runs into people from the future. Like, who are the General's minions. Like, Kent shows up, Toyota, which, what the fuck? Here's my bodyguard, Tercel, and Subaru. The fuck? And it gets so bizarre. Like, the General comes back to the past at one point, and all these characters are fighting him, and the guy who's the Dalsum stand-in becomes Mr. Fantastic and basically entraps him, but only after the character of Broomhead Vega drills through this guy. Guile builds a bomb because reasons. And that's not the only time he builds a bomb in this movie. He does it in the headmaster's office. No. Okay, no. Hold on. Hold that thought for this new thought because I've got ADHD. To go undercover, they have to pretend to be students with this guy's the guy who they landed on his roof, so clearly they must stay with him. So the classic fish out of water story. And Broomhead applies to be a teacher there. And they're like, what do you teach? Science, math, English, physics, and music. And they're like, bullshit. You can't do that. Show us chemistry. And he invents an atomic bomb in like 2 seconds, places it on their desk. He's like, here's a bomb. Bye. And they're like, take this with you. Nope. And he walks out. But there's a lot of dialogue out of that scene where the student, Broomhead, and the other time traveler, they're saying, oh, this is my cousin. He is like 17. They're like, no, he's not. Yes, he is. He has a disease. He's born with old face. And I just about died when I read that. I'm like, I'm born with a disease that gives me old face. I'm thinking, all right, that's a vibe. And okay, there's another scene, and we're gonna reference Mario again here for just a moment before we get back to the general blowing up. So they go to an arcade because in the future, where the future cops come from, love, sex, and dating is very, very different. Like there's no babies because of the AIDS epidemic. So yikes, number one. They have to take sperm and eggs to a laboratory to make new people. Okay, that's some sci-fi Children of Men shit, but okay, sure. But they have this entire conversation about the AIDS epidemic, the downfall of humanity, the changing of courtship rituals in the future. While dressed as Mario characters, I squeed. I just about pissed myself when they start talking about the seriousness of the AIDS epidemic dressed as Mario characters. Now, I posted a very short clip of this on Twitter last night. I'm like, what am I watching? And again, texted Ken, 1:00 in the morning. You're a monster. What the hell is this? Now, back to my original point. So the final battle takes place. They're fighting all the guys. They fight Ken, Toyota, and some other asshole. And they drill through. Like, Vega can somehow do the Psycho Crusher maneuver. Drills through the general. Guile plants the bomb, I guess he built earlier, into this dude. And he blows up. But Kent turns into a good guy. Because he's like, man, the general sucks. I should not do this. No, you shouldn't. Okay, let's be friends. And all right. And the movie ends with all of them on a rooftop. Somebody can you explain to me why somebody shows up dressed as Blanca? Or is that just high reasons?
Yeah, just high reasons.
Okay, so high reasons. Yeah, so they all get up on a rooftop. Broomhead has somehow made a connection with a local girl. Another person has like everybody somehow gets a girlfriend out of this. It's very strange, and the movie just kind of ends with them doing the Great Value Walmart version of the Street Fighter pose from the end of the 94 movie. And it just is one of the strangest hour-and-a-half experiences I've spent not heavily drunk. I literally wondered, like, I stopped watching this at about 2:00, and I remember sat there and I'm questioning life choices. I'm thinking, first off, the things I do for this podcast, why didn't I watch this in the middle of the day so I could have subjected Blair to this? And man, Alex would have straight up got up and punched me until I hit the stop button for showing this. Because this is so bizarre. Like, and they try it, like, there's one point where they're fighting inside a 7-Eleven and they're throwing Hadoukens and sonic booms, except they're called Raging Fist and Crescent Knife. So, okay, sure, I'll let that go.
I think that's the actual translation. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Oh, and I forgot to mention this. In the future, they have flying skateboards. Or sorry, flying scooters. So if you've ever seen the scooters from Back to the Future, that's what they're using. And a lot of lasers. And they have this like Dragon Ball Z beam battle where they're, like I said, just throwing Hadoukens and sonic booms back at each other. And I'm wondering, and this is probably me looking way too far in the Street Fighter lore, but there is a stage in Street Fighter 4 and Super Street Fighter 4. It's Rufus's stage, and Rufus's stage is outside like a restaurant or a convenience store, and there's like a crowd of people. So there's a scene where one of the future cops and I think the guy's sister are going out for a date or something, and that's where they get into this huge kind of beam battle moment. And I just wondered if Street Fighter 4 is referencing this moment. I mean, it could just be a coincidence, and I'm more than likely going to believe that it is. But it was just so strange. I mean, you do see moves like the Hurricane Kick. You do see the Hadouken. You see the Sonic Boom. I think you see E Honda's move in here, or maybe I'm getting that confused with the City Hunter thing. Oh, I forgot. There's a moment where the lead character who's let them stay with them the entire time, he awakens his true power.
Mm-hmm.
And he turns in the fucking Goku.
Yep.
I was like, why is he dressed like Goku after he becomes a Super Saiyan?
Because China.
Because China, clearly. Now, I got to thinking last night, again, after moments have passed, I reflected upon life's choices that have led to this particular moment. And it's not like China and Japan have small economies, not by any stretch of the imagination. And I got to wondering, why is it, Ken, and maybe you can shed some kind of light onto this for me, why don't their film industries have better adaptations of beloved properties? Because I have seen good examples come out of there, but not often.
It's a cultural expectation thing, and also just how they consider a pace of a film to be very different from what we feel in the West is a good pace. Like, again, I just saw the Saint Seiya movie like 2 weeks ago, and that movie is edited like ass.
See, like, and it's so strange because, like, I've heard of movies out of Japan that are very well received. Like,
oh, I can tell you the best live action adaptation is the Kenshin films, all 6 of them.
Oh wow! See, I was expecting you to say Phoenix Wright, which I mistakenly said on Twig a couple weeks ago, depending on when this airs. I thought we were watching that. Now, the other movie we are going to watch, and we will talk about later, is the Professor Layton, and that looks the part. Because I like scrubbed through. I'm thinking, wow, this looks just like the DS game. Holy shit!
It's the animation house that did the cutscenes.
Okay, cool. So consistency. And I've also heard that the Phoenix Wright live action movie is quite good too. And yes. I'm thinking, all right, cool. So there are good video game adaptations that come out of the East. It's just we don't necessarily see them over here, or they're buried on services. You have to import them. You might have somebody who's uploaded them on YouTube, and yet you get really weird adaptations, which we will talk about on this program at some point in the future. Like, there's the Tekken movie from the late 2000s. There's
Dead or Alive.
Dead or Alive, which is bad but fun bad, if that makes any sense.
They knew what they were doing.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, there are other YouTubers that have taken these on. There's the Fatal Fury movie, which randomly involves virtual reality. I know if you look around, a very famous YouTuber reposted their review of it in higher quality. So if you go looking for Fatal Fury movie or King of Fighters, sorry, and Fatal Fury, you can both find both of those on kind of YouTube. And I don't know, like, I guess as we begin to close this out, I wonder, what is it that makes video games so hard to adapt, or they change things so radically? I mean, when the Street Fighter movie came out in 1994, that movie was written in like a weekend, but
it's because at the time, back until very recently, Hollywood did not respect video games at all. Like, they just did not respect it as a medium. They thought it was stupid and just for kids. And so they didn't really give it the respect that it deserved. And even now, there are some adaptations that are kind of trash. And then there are some that are just okay. At this point, there are enough people that play video games and know about video games that are working in the industry that you're not going to get a disaster of an adaptation like Street Fighter. You're never going to have that ever again.
Yeah.
What we're going to get at best is an okay film.
Yeah, like, because you think of some of the modern video game movies that have come to theaters. We've had Need for Speed, which I haven't seen, but I heard was just okay. The Tomb Raider reboot was fine. It wasn't anything special. It was Indiana Jones with the serial numbers kind of scratched off. Uncharted. We had Mortal Kombat. And Mortal Kombat's had an interesting history. And in fact, I would love to delve into Mortal Kombat adaptations, because as a whole, as I mentioned during the Mario thing, there was a direct-to-video movie that was made, I'm pretty sure, on like a 486. And for those of you that know what the hell I'm talking about, you're old too. Called Mortal Kombat: The Journey Begins. And I remember it was a promo video, or you could buy it for like $20 from Music World or HMV up here in Canada. And it was a very loose adaptation of the lead up to the first tournament. But for Mortal Kombat, for example, we had the movie in 95, we had Mortal Kombat Annihilation in 97, and that movie's very infamous for what it did. But there was also Mortal Kombat: The Legacy Begins, which was a television series that ran for 20 plus episodes for a single season. And that was, if I recall, fairly well received. There was the Mortal Kombat Defenders of the Realm, which was a cartoon that ran on the USA Network with Luke Perry of 90210 fame and Riverdale, may he rest in peace, who voiced Sub-Zero during that cartoon. And he was based on his Mortal Kombat 3 appearance. So Mortal Kombat at one time was super, super, super hot. And then there was always that talk of the reboot, which took forever. There was that web series that kind of did it, that was like a director's kind of sizzle reel, and was he the guy who ended up doing the Mortal Kombat movie, Ken? No. Or not? Okay, no. So, but he did present an alternate take on Sonya and Jax and Reptile and Johnny Cage, and it looked pretty cool. There was a series, I remember you could buy them from the Funimation website, but they were like Mortal Kombat shorts or something. Featuring Scorpion and Sub-Zero. So it's not like video game adaptations are going away. I mean, The Witcher turned into a hugely successful thing for Netflix. Castlevania is a very popular anime, and I'm pretty sure that's over now.
Yep. Well, they're supposedly working on the next iteration of it with who's the Blue Belmont.
Richter,
yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, like that's something to look forward to. And this year, like we've had The Last of Us, and I've got on record multiple times saying this, and I'll say it again here. If they don't get nominated for an Emmy for several moments in that series, it would honestly surprise me. Like, I think the Bill and Frank episode of The Last of Us is one of the best episodes of television I've ever seen. If that doesn't get nominated for something for writing this year or adapted screenplay or whatever it is that the Emmys do. Somebody got robbed. The Witcher I haven't got into, but I'm very curious to see. Set pictures are continuing to leak from the Fallout series. I know within the last week or so, we've seen pictures of what the ghouls look like, and it looks freaking fantastic. I know the Mass Effect series is slowly moving forward at Amazon right now, but with the writer's strike, I guess it's
everything's in a standstill.
Yeah, so a lot of stuff is up in the air right now. So I hope projects don't die during this time. I mean, some of the stuff is weird to go back and watch again. Like I said, you've got your Fatal Furies, your King of Fighters, your Tekkens, your Dead or Alives. There was even a Far Cry movie that friend of the show, Handsome Tom and Craig were in once upon a time as mercenaries or scientists or something. The Uwe Boll movies. Hell, we've never done a salute to Uwe Boll. And I'll be dead honest, I like some of his stuff, mostly because I don't want him to get into a ring and punch me to death. I love how he used to challenge his critics to boxing matches. I'm like, nah, man, if my ringer can be Mike Tyson or Floyd Mayweather, yeah, sure.
Honestly, his Postal films aren't that bad.
Yeah, they're kind of fun.
They're actual movies.
Yeah, and I seem to recall liking the first Blood Rain with Christina Lokenson, the Terminatrix randomly, although I seem to recall a scene of them having sex between a prison cell or something, but I'm probably misremembering that, but I just like Christina Lokenson. But yeah, like there are movies we are going to cover on this show because video games is something me and Ken love. I know Alex will probably jump in on this, probably JT. I don't know about Aaron, but maybe. But yeah, so I'm glad we got a chance to take a look at these movies because, again, it's stuff I've never been exposed to, and I'm sure the next time I challenge Ken to do something, it'll be a little bit weird as well. But as promised, folks, we are going to take a look at the first 3 Pokemon movies. We're going to try and do that in the next couple of weeks before we take our break for the summertime. I would love to talk about the Street Fighter things because there's a number of there's Street Fighter 2, the animated movie. I think there's 2 or 3 Street Fighter Alpha movies. There's the Street Fighter animated series that the USA Network did. I think it ran for like 24 episodes. So there's a lot of stuff to talk about there. And then there's like Street Fighter, the Street Fighter 4's animated thing that came with the collector's edition of the game. I mean, I'm friends with Ryu from that. Not really the guy, but I know Kyle A. Bear. I'm sure he could share some insights because Street Fighter 6 drops in just a couple of weeks. So we're probably going to do more of these because it's easy. It's something me and Ken can do. If the boys join us, great. But it's going to be an experience, I'm sure. I'm sure the rose-colored glasses will be punched off my face at some point during all this. But yeah, Ken, thank you for Nightmare Fuel. I'm never going to forget overly sexualized Toad. I'm going to rape you and Guile doing. Okay, folks, I'm going to direct you to my Twitter at BirdmanDodd. And there's a short video that I posted of Guile dancing and playing pencils on people's heads as a music teacher. And it is just so bizarre. I want you to carry that into your day. Whenever you're having a bad moment, just be Broomhead and be very happy with yourselves. So on that disastrous venture into foreign cinema, we have been
Ken from This Anime.
I've been Mike the Birdman saying, in this case, don't be kind, rewind, just close the window and forget you ever saw it. Birdman, out.
Are either one of these any good? Sir,
What?
are either one of these any good?
I don't watch movies.
Quick! Change the channel!
You're wasting your life making shit! Nobody cares! These movies are terrible!
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.